Hey guys, and thanks for tuning in to Long Island Wargaming's All Things Skaven, a series with myself, Nick, where I go through all things Skaven. So this video is Skavenslaves. Um, Slaves are a core choice, and they are awesome. Not because of their stat line, just because of what they can do and what they bring to the army. 2 points a model, you're getting movement 5, which is quick. Weapon skill 2, which is terrible. Strength 3, which is alright. Toughness 3, not bad. Initiative 4. And leadership 2, which is pretty bad. So let's talk right off the bat about leadership 2. Now, I think there's I don't know if calling it a flaw is the right thing, but there's an issue with this Skaven book where you can buy an engineer for 15 points with no equipment or anything. So what do? When you bring a unit of slaves, you buy a hero for 15 points and stick them in the unit. Now they no longer have leadership 2, they have leadership 5. And then, with their strength in numbers, they have leadership 8. So, with strength in numbers, which is their plus 1 to leadership for each rank for up to 3 for rank bonus, they would have leadership 5 as long as you have enough of them, but put a engineer in there, because even if they're going to be nearby the general, that's great, but odds are I like to leave them out on the flanks to just take up space and protect the flanks of my unit, because when they're charged, usually I've got about, I don't know, 10 ranks of them, so they're going to be steadfast on hopefully leadership 10 with a reroll as long as the BSB is nearby. So that's the leadership problem with them, but you can soup up their leadership, and it does make them not necessarily broken, but tough to deal with in a 8th edition battle where you have steadfast and leadership 10. So, equipment wise, they come with nothing at 2 points. Now you can give them spears for half a point, slings for half a point, and shields for half a point. This is what I usually do with them. I equip them with nothing. They're so cheap. When I bring units of 50, it's 100 points. Or 102 points, because you might want to give them a musician. This way you can swift reform. And I rarely ever give them a champion. Maybe I'd give them a champion if I wanted to protect my engineer. I mean, we'll talk about the engineers more in a minute. But spears, I don't really care about getting extra attacks with Skavenslaves. They're not there to kill stuff. I mean, instead of getting 10 attacks at weapon skill 2, strength 3, I'm going to get 15. I don't know. Depends on who you're playing. If you're playing a low weapon skill, low toughness army, maybe it's worth it. But then again, I don't know. You reduce the amount of slaves you could take by, I think, essentially 24%, because your model's no longer 2 points, they're 2.5. So I'd rather just get, for 10 points, I'd rather get 5 guys instead of 4 for 2.5 points. So lots of slaves. Love slaves. Lots of them. Shields. If you really like the 6 armor save and the 6 parry save, go for it. I don't really care, though, for it. Another thing, so I mean, like I said, I usually just equip them with nothing. They're just there to get in the way, be chaff. They're just there to take up space and lock units into combat. Now, it's their special rules that make them a little bit more interesting. They do have strength in numbers, and they do have scurry away, which is standard for most Skaven infantry. However, expendable is pretty cool. Now, they don't cause panic to other Skaven units. And let me just confirm that. But however, the expendable is you can shoot into combat with other units against Skavenslaves, which is pretty cool, especially if you can make giant units of them. If you're going to bring the unit of 50 like I do, have them tie in some random units that are locked in combat, and then warp fire thrower them, or just shoot at them with something. So the fact that you could target them with shooting weapons while they're in combat is awesome. Now, a good combo is Skavenslaves and scrimmaging Globadiers. Um, 50 clan rats, 50 slaves, and 10 Globadiers. Lock them into combat with, say, cavalry or dwarves or monstrous cavalry. Anything that has high toughness, high armor. Get them in combat, and then from 6 inches away, you just throw globes into combat. Hopefully killing your own, hopefully killing the enemy because they do get randomized. But that's great. Now I'm going to lock you into combat for 2 turns, and hopefully I can kill some knights or some skull crushers or some Mournfang while you're stuck there fighting my rinky-dink Skaven slaves. Yeah, so all Skaven except other Skaven slaves automatically pass panic tests from Skaven slaves. So they're expendable. Who cares? We can shoot into combat. We don't care if we kill them, and we don't care if they turn and run away. So awesome. Bring a lot of them. They don't cause disruption, and they don't, make your other guys turn and run also. Another cool thing is the cornered rats special rule. I like it. I think it gives the army the character it needs. Can it be bad sometimes? Yes, it could definitely work against you sometimes, especially since this has to do with your unit fleeing. Instead of them fleeing, they just die. But what happens when they die? For every unit within D6 inches, so if you're the unit you're fighting, so you've got another friendly unit nearby and another foe, and you roll a 3 and they're all within 3 inches, they all get affected. They all take D3 strength 3 hits for the front rank of the Skaven slave unit, but an additional hit for every rank after. So, I tried to spam this for fun one day, and I brought a unit of Skaven slaves that had like 15 ranks. And ran it in, and I figured, oh no, if I lost, my enemy will take, and it was like against like elves or something, so strength 3 hits are worth it with armor save 5 or 6 or maybe even 4, and getting 15 of them plus D3, it's funny. It's not a very expensive unit, and I figured I'd run it in and then just blow up, and hopefully it affected not just the unit I attacked, but a bunch of other nearby units. And it didn't work, which was a good thing. The Skaven slaves just sat there for turns because leadership 10 with the reroll, if you can get it, if you have a lord nearby and you've got plenty of ranks for your Skaven slaves, it's awesome. They just sit there. They just take up space, and there's nothing your enemy can do about it. It's like when you get stuck in combat with zombies or skeletons. Like, you regret it because you're like, this unit could be off somewhere else doing something better instead of sitting here fighting zombies that keep coming back. So what you do is take it as a bonus that when they run, instead of fleeing, they just blow up. The cornered rats essentially says that they just go crazy. They run into each other. People kill them. They sometimes kill other people. But they're pretty funny that way. I'm going to recommend bringing them in most lists. I mean, they're good to just get in the way. I mean, you can give them slings. I mean, I don't even think that's worth it with their shitty ballistic skill too. But they're all right. So let's just look at different armies I might do different things with them against. Beastmen, I don't play enough to really care. Bretonnia, I'd probably bring a lot of them against Bretonnia because those units are so long with their lance formation that if they get stuck fighting clan rats, I don't care. I'm just going to flank the crap out of those units. So definitely awesome against Bretonnia. Demons of Chaos, I don't know. Probably not, actually, or not a lot of them, because demons are, from what I remember, I mean, I haven't played much 8th edition demons, but demons were always good at taking your leadership and just screwing you really bad and just making you take leadership tests, and slaves aren't gonna do well with leadership 2. Um, so I mean, I don't know what I would do against demons with them. Dark elves, high elves, wood elves, bring them. Just get in the way. They can actually kill elves. I mean, most of the time it's going to be fives to hit because of usually elite elves have weapon skill 5. But fours to wound, can't go bad with that. And most like high elf infantry, heavy armor, not too hard to kill. So they could just get in the way. And then if they flee, then who cares? They're just gonna hopefully do some wounds on those elves, which are, I mean, fours to wound. If I run in a unit of 50 and they kill 10 guys, and I still have 8 ranks left and they run, whatever. You're gonna take, hopefully 10 strength, 10 strength 3 hits. It's useful. Lizardmen. It's a toss-up between slaves and giant rats. Now, giant rats are a little bit better. They've got some better weapon skill. Weapon skill 3, so they would be good against skinks. But even if you have some slaves and you want to throw them up against skinks, I mean, you need that chaffy stuff to get rid of those little cheesy, annoying skink units. But the giant rats might be a little bit quicker, so I might recommend them against lizardmen. Ogre kingdoms. Ogre kingdoms have such little surface area when you're lining up your matchups with your units. I feel like slaves would just get in the way. So maybe not, unless you know there's going to be Noblars and you want to just throw something at the Noblars, whatever. Orcs and goblins I bring almost always. And I feel like all these references I'm making is against combat. Don't forget, these things are good at just protecting your flanks, because if you have a long line of them, it's hard to cake them out, and it's hard to break them. But orcs and goblins, they usually bring them to deal with goblins if necessary, but otherwise just to protect my flanks. Against another Skaven player, I don't know. That would just be a silly game, so sure, why not? Empire, yeah. I mean, most of the time, if you're fighting weapon skill 3 or weapon skill 4 infantry, you're hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, not a bad deal. And the cornered rats rule, strength 3, toughness 3, you can kill some guys. I mean, armor isn't affected, so, I mean, it wouldn't be good against, say, great swords, but something that has little to no armor would do awesome. Tomb Kings is a must, because you just need to be able to lock in those crappy units that they have that, I shouldn't say crappy, just that aren't going to go anywhere. Stick something of yours that isn't going to go anywhere in one of their units that isn't going to go anywhere, and then use your stuff that's good, like your Storm Vermin or your Rat Ogres, and flank them or get behind them. Vampire counts, same thing. Warriors of Chaos. The Warriors of Chaos usually have little to no surface area, so I feel like troops would just get in the way. Having too many Skaven sometimes is a bad thing. So against Warriors of Chaos, maybe not, because they've got fast-moving monsters that could just run in there, do 5 damage a turn, and then thunder stomp you for another 3 guys. You're gonna get dwindled down quickly. And sometimes combat res could hurt, because, I mean, if you have a Manticore or not Manticore, a Chimera that's flanking you and it's running in and doing a breath weapon and just leaving you with, like, I don't know, 15 combat res. You lost by 15 combat res. Yeah, you might still be stubborn, but depending on how the rest of the game is going, there's a good chance you're going to break. And, yeah. So that's what I would do against different armies. Now let's talk a little bit more about using slaves as a shuttle unit. Now, I just about always put an engineer in there, not only for leadership, but because engineers are also good shuttle characters. They're good at holding stuff. Now, my engineers, I'll usually give them a Doom Rocket, or a Dispel Scroll, or I don't know, whatever. Just items that you don't feel like putting on your heroes because it takes up points, but you still want to bring to the game. That's what I put on my engineers. So I'll usually have an engineer in each unit, one with the Doom Rocket so I can shoot up whatever infantry unit. Usually the Doom Rocket landing on infantry. It's awesome. But yeah, or shuttling heroes. I mean, if you want to put 3 chieftains in the front of a clan rat, slave rat unit, and just run them forward, it's not gonna be bad. It's not gonna be bad. I mean, if depending on how you equip your chieftains, they're really just there for making sure your guys don't run. So 3 chieftains with some decent equipment, and then say 50 slaves. Whatever. That's maybe a 300-point unit. And it can give some damage. I mean, depending on how you equip your chieftains, they could do some damage, but you'd equip them according to who you're playing against. So slaves are good at getting in the way, locking stuff up in combat, breaking and hopefully doing some damage, but also shuttling your heroes into combat. But at 2 points a model, you might say, why not just spend 2 more and bring a naked clan rat for better weapon skill, better leadership? It's a good point. Depends on if you're looking to stay there for as long as you can, or if you're trying to actually deal out some damage. So, but Skavenslaves are awesome. I usually make my slaves the models that have hand weapons. So when I buy an Island of Blood, I get 20 clan rats with spears and then 20 slaves. And I usually make them so they're the ones with the least amount of armor. So when I go into how I model my army, usually the ones that are just cloth, I'll just make those the slaves represent. Less armor and just a whole lot of fabric-y, crappy looking clothing on them. So, alright, great. Questions, comments, leave them below if there's anything I missed or any input you want to give on the Skavenslaves. Drop a comment below. But thanks for watching, and tune in for some other All Things Skaven videos. Thanks, guys.